good conversation. Mark called me today at 10 o'clock. We put out a statement. We had a very, very good talk. He's going through an election now, and we'll see what happens. But we have Liberation Day, as you know, on April 2nd. Because, and I'm not referring to Canada, but many countries have taken advantage of us, the likes of which nobody even thought was possible for many, many decades, And, you know, that has to stop. We're going to end up with a very good relationship with Canada and a lot of the other countries. I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States.
U.S. President Donald Trump there significantly softening his take on this country following his first conversation with Mark Carney. Both leaders coming off of that phone conversation with positive takes. Trump even calling it, quote, extremely productive. Here's Carney's take.
We had a very constructive discussion, and we agreed to begin comprehensive negotiations about a new economic and security relationship between our two sovereign countries immediately following the federal election. Perhaps there was a different impression before about how strong Canada really is.
You've said that you wouldn't sit down with Mr. Trump and talk to him unless he respects Canada's sovereignty. Did you convey that to the president today? And if so, what did he say?
The president respected Canada's sovereignty today, both in his private and public comments.
That initial comment you heard a few minutes ago from Donald Trump, that came from the White House shortly after the call with Mark Carney. Moments ago, he spoke again on Air Force One. Let's take a listen to that.
And after the call, you seem to be much more positive about Canada than you've been in the past.
No, I just think, you know, I've always loved Canada. And we had a very good conversation with the Prime Minister. And, they've got an election going on, so we're going to meet after the election.
For more on what seems, at least in the immediacy, like a change in tone and whether it could lead to more, someone who knows Donald Trump well. John Bolton was his national security advisor and also served as ambassador to the UN under President George W. Bush. Ambassador Bolton, pleasure to welcome you back to our program. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
So today, for the first time in months, we had been kind of accustomed to conversations occurring between Trump and a government official here, and it, you know, not essentially translating to anything positive on social media. Today, he actually called the Prime Minister. He said the conversation was extremely productive. Should we read anything into the difference in reaction?
Well, I don't think you should over-conclude on the basis of one telephone call, but both sides tried to give a positive reading to it. Obviously, Canada will have an election in a month, and we'll see who emerges victorious. But as I've tried to explain to people getting to understand why Trump behaves the way he does, he sees international relations almost entirely through a personal prism. So if he has good relations with a foreign leader, he thinks U.S. relations with that country are good. For well or ill, he's never liked Justin Trudeau. And I think that explains a lot of it. Now, if it turns out he likes Mike Carney or Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party, if he wins, that would be a big step forward. People say, but it can't be that simple. It has to be more complex. And my response is, no, it's not. If Trump believes that he has friendly relations with someone, you know, like Vladimir Putin, then relations between the two countries will be much better.
And did you see evidence of that during your time in that administration? I think I remember you once citing Abe as an example of that.
Well, I thought the foreign leader who did the best of any foreign leader in Trump's first term in getting a relationship with him that benefited his country and honestly benefited the United States quite a bit too. It was Abe. Boris Johnson probably came in second in that regard. Prime Minister Trudeau was, you know, somewhere near the basement, but you know, Mark Carney has a background in finance, and maybe that's a basis on which the two of them can work more productively. We don't know, but it's possible.
Is it when you talk about the personal side of it, is there a method to the madness, so to speak? Like, is there a tried and true formula that ultimately does resonate with Trump, or is it kind of haphazard and just ultimately his decision in the moment about the person?
Well, flattery is always good. It's sometimes hard for foreign leaders to indulge in it too much. I can understand that. The Abe secret, I think, was talking to Trump all the time that he could. He would meet with him in person. He'd speak with him on the telephone. They'd play golf together, where Abe didn't necessarily ask for anything, but just talked and developed a relationship. Then when he needed something, like when Trump was getting ready to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, then Abe could say, here's what's important for Japan, 1, 2, 3. And Trump, by and large, tried to accommodate him, which I think was the right policy for the United States as well as the right policy for Japan. So if that's of interest, I think that was a successful formula.
He's still talking about next week as Liberation Day, April the 2nd. He's going to bring in reciprocal tariffs. He said there's the possibility of border-tied tariffs that have now been delayed twice. Plus, this week, he announced a new set of tariffs specific to the auto sector. How much of that, in your view, the specific announcement and the timing of it, had to do with trying to move around or move past or distract from what happened with Signal and that controversy?
Well, I think the April 2nd target date for Liberation Day, as Trump called it, was set well before, but it certainly doesn't hurt from the objective of trying to remove the Signal Gate controversy from public attention. I think we're on the verge of a trade war with all of America's best allies and trading partners, and it's economic illiteracy on Trump's part, and it's going to leave everybody involved worse off.
Do you have the impression that there are any off-ramps ahead from that war?
Well, I don't see what they are at this moment. You know, the only person who really does know if there are off-ramps is Trump, and I'm not sure his own staff knows what his thinking is, with good reason, because I don't think Trump knows what his thinking is.
Do you think there's any possibility that the speculation that he might be welcoming of a recession to some degree could be based in truth? And I think it's so counterintuitive for many people, but I've now seen sort of growing commentary to that effect.
Well, I think he's trying to lower expectations after having said things would be wonderful from day one. The reality that the stock markets and other indicators are showing is these trade policies are going to have negative effects on the American economy. I think most students of the economy would have said that, and everybody but Donald Trump would have listened to them. So I think he's trying to condition the American public, but I think things could be a lot worse than he expects, because he basically doesn't believe anybody will retaliate against the U.S. tariffs, that they'll succumb and agree to whatever it is his objectives turn out to be. And I must say, I think in many different places in different parts of the world, I don't see that happening. I think we're in for a trade war.
Do you think that conditioning you talked about has been effective in any way, or do you see a shift in sentiment among Americans who are kind of unsure that this is what they signed up for?
Well, I think there could be a significant shift. I don't think invading Greenland or Panama or making Canada the 51st state were what people voted for in November of 2024. I think they voted there were many reasons, but largely against the failure of the Biden administration economic plan, high prices, the risk of higher inflation. And everyone who studies tariffs believes that the more that go into effect, the higher the prices that Americans will have to pay for the goods that are tariffed will be. There's little doubt about that. I think that could have a significant adverse political effect, particularly for Republicans who have to run for re-election to the House or the Senate in 2026. The markets are down again today. We never know where they're going to end on any given day, but all of the outlooks, I think, are going to turn negative, and that, I think, could accelerate a decline in Trump's approval rating pretty quickly.
Ambassador, just one final question for you vis-a-vis what happened with Signal. And just speaking, as one of the allies with the United States who depends on a relationship around sharing intelligence, and obviously you spent a lot of your career in the national security space. Would what happened over the last week give you pause if you were one of those allies about that intelligence sharing?
Well, unfortunately, I have to say it would give me pause. If you show a lax attitude on security for sensitive information, others are going to be reluctant to share it with you. It's simply a matter of common sense. I think this was a catastrophic mistake for the administration in that it happened. It's inconceivable to me why anybody would walk away from the world's most expensive and most secure telecommunications system to use some commercial app. And I worry that this wasn't the first time, that it might have gone on for the 2 months since the inauguration. So the White House should take this a lot more seriously. And I think it's the Five Eyes allies in particular should explain it to anybody they can find, that this has got to be corrected sooner rather than later.
I'll leave it on that note. Ambassador, pleasure as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.